What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. Today we're going to be reviewing the Razer Tartarus Pro one-handed keyboard. As you guys have probably already seen, I have reviewed the Tartarus V2 as well as the Razer Orbweaver, and then after we review this bad boy, we are going to be comparing the three one-handed keyboard models from Razer to find out what might be a good fit for you. So much like the Tartarus V2, this has programmable switches, a scroll wheel, a D-pad, very comfortable ergonomics, solid build quality, RGB that is tunable with the Razer Synapse app to coordinate with your other Razer devices. However, the main difference, instead of mecha membrane switches, which I personally absolutely love, they feel fantastic, kind of a blend between membrane and mechanical switches, this one has analog optical switches that actually let you fine-tune or adjust in the software how the buttons feel as far as resistance and click. So I am very excited to test that out. I've never tested anything like that where you can manually adjust what your buttons feel like, so I am super excited. We'll see if that justifies the extra $50 over the Tartarus V2. Let's get it. So with all Razer packaging, the box is very in-depth with the features of the actual product. And it shows a little bit of what I'm most excited about, which is the dual function keys, which allows you to adjust the analog optical switches, which is absolutely insane. More control at the fingertips. While most switches register a singular input when pressing a key, the Razer analog optical switch can register scaling levels of input in the same keystroke, depending on how far you press, enabling a more measured and nuanced form of control similar to controller thumbsticks. So I don't fully understand, but I mean, that's insane. I'm really excited to try this. Adjustable actuation for customizable key press sensitivity, so not just how sensitive the buttons are, but also how far in you have to push the button for it to actuate. That's super cool. So you have 32 programmable keys, and then you of course have full RGB to coordinate with your other Razer devices, which is really cool. So opening the box up, you of course have laser cut foam in there, holding this in place quite nicely. I do like that it is white with this little haze gray or kind of silverish wrist pad in there. I think that would actually go pretty good with my Stormtrooper theme here. And let's get this thing out. Sweet, so you have your thank you letter from Razer for buying the product. And, you know, all their marketing stuff on there, welcome to the family, blah, blah, blah. You have your instruction manual here, which should have a little pack of stickers. Yes, indeed. If you don't get the stickers, it's not a real Razer product. You gotta get the stickers, boys. You gotta get them. So the instruction manual is pretty tiny font for my old eyes. I don't have the eyes of an eagle anymore, but yeah, it's got some lime green in there, which is kind of Razer's signature color. All right, so the actual product itself, the build quality feels phenomenal. This is just hard plastic here, unlike this is just smooth hard plastic here. It felt a little bit more rubberized on the Tartarus V2, but I think it's just the same material, which feels really velvety smooth, but I think it's just plastic actually. Then you have this really nice memory foam wrist pad with a very nice leatherette coating on it. You do also have this D-pad, which you can remove the analog stick if you want just an actual D-pad and not this analog wheel. This is just hard plastic. I don't understand why they don't rubberize this and make a little, like, you know, thumbstick cap for it. I think that'd be great. You have an additional button here, which is programmable, of course. You have your space bar here, so it'll most likely be your jump and shooters. And then, of course, you have a scroll wheel, which you can also click down, and then 19 programmable buttons. You also have a 10-foot braided cable with a Razer branded rubber cable tie here. I would prefer if they went with something like Scuff when they have the Velcro tie-offs, but this rubber one does the job just fine. Then you also have a Razer branding here on the end of the USB port, as well as a little cover here for storage if you don't want to get dust in there. So ergonomically feels really good. Now I have kind of long skinny fingers, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this thing up. Oh, I broke it. Not really. So you have these 4 different slots in here. Now in my Tartarus V2 review, I did not know that this feature was on that one, and it's also on this one too. So you can actually move this back a little bit. And now, yeah, that feels better. Cool. So not quite as much adjustment as the Orbweaver, which has like adjustment for the tilt right here, how far this goes back, like the angle of this. Like it has like 3 different types of adjustment, and it's very versatile with its adjustability. This is more set, you know, it's just got 2 settings there, but I mean the fact that it has any adjustability is cool. For me, I think this probably feels the best. It's kind of a reach for the upper buttons, but for me, I think that's how I'm going to play that. Yeah, this feels okay, but I think for me personally, I like it back at the second setting like that. So these buttons feel really crappy right now, probably because it's not powered on, and these are kind of like, you know, electrical powered switches that have, you know, features that kick on when you're hooked up to the application. Right now, they don't feel like anything at all. They don't feel like a mechanical switch. There's no tactile click. They don't feel like a membrane switch. There's no rubber plunger in there. In fact, let's go ahead and pop one of these off and take a look at what's underneath here. Interesting, boys, interesting. Alrighty guys, pick you guys off the tripod for a minute. We're gonna go freehand. So, we got the Tartarus Pro over here, which has these really interesting switches in them. I've never seen anything like this before. As you see when you click it down, it's not a traditional mechanical switch. It does have a hinge mechanism in there, and then what looks like an optical sensor in there, so kind of a laser, a light, in order to sense how far down the button is pressed. Now these are traditional mechanical switches. This is a 6-year-old Razer Orbweaver, the first generation one. Before you could change the RGB color, it's just lime green or nothing at all. This thing's great, has a ton of adjustment, and I got this thing for free from a coworker / friend, so really fucking cool. But these are traditional mechanical switches like you guys have seen time and time again. Those are the Razer blue switches. And then also I have my keyboard and the Tartarus V2 over here. This is a Razer Black Widow Elite or Pro, whatever their version is, that has the media switches up here, the control wheel. And then this is the Tartarus V2 over here. This has Razer greens. And then this one has the Mecha membrane switches, which still has a membrane plunger in there. But it also has that little metal pin, if you can see that in there. Yeah, the camera's kind of picking it up. You have a little metal pin right where my index finger is, but then you also have that plunger. So you get like the squish of a membrane, but then also a tactile click and strong rebound like you would with a mechanical keyboard. So that one's really interesting. Not to mention it causes a really cool RGB pattern because you have like this coating around it because of the rubber plunger. As you can see, like the RGB bleeds underneath these floating keycaps, but then over here, it's just kind of like they're sunken in there. Does that make any sense? Like they're floating over here on the full-size Black Widow, but over here on the Tartarus, they're kind of like one big piece, one big rubber piece under there, which creates different RGB effects, but obviously they're tuned up to be doing the same trickling fireplace effect right now through the Razer Synapse app. I do also have a Razer mouse, but I use it as a backup. This is kind of my primary. I also have Razer Nari Ultimates right there that do also have RGB and these little snake logos, so that can also be doing the same fireplace trickly thing or whatever RGB effect you like through the Razer Synapse 3 app, which is really cool. Razer has a shitload of accessories, like even mouse bungees and headphone stand, and they all have RGB. So if they're all coordinated, you can set up like a trickling wave effect, or you can have it cycling through the spectrum through all your devices. It looks really fucking cool. Granted, most companies do that now, like Corsair allows you to do that. I think Logitech has an RGB suite, but Razer is no different in that means. Hi. Are you admiring how shitty my cable management is right now? We haven't gotten to that yet, sweetheart. Oh yes, you can keep my feet warm. So whenever you plug in a new Razer product for the first time, it will pop up the Synapse 3 application. If it's your first Razer product, you will need to install the app. Just search the Windows Store for Razer Synapse, and if you can't find it there, then there is a URL in the instruction manual, or literally just Google Razer Synapse application. But whenever you install a new device that hasn't been used before, it'll install the drivers, and then it may require a system restart as well, depending on how in-depth the drivers are. So with this new driver update, which is stranded at 99% for God knows whatever reason, it's only 10 out of 10 megabytes, and it's at 10 out of 10. So I'm not really sure what's going there. I'm about to bump start it in a minute, but it says some really cool stuff that I'm excited about for. Congratulations, you now hold the competitive advantage. There's no turning back. Razer Tartarus Pro in Mercury White. I wonder how they know it's the Mercury White version that I have plugged in. Maybe they use a different, because they do have a black version of the Pro as well. I specifically got the white one for, you know, my setup. But experience analog input for games. Set controller analog inputs for keys to experience a new way to play. This is where it gets cool. Set a secondary function for each key with dual function keys. So you can set up each one of those buttons to where you get a certain key map or key binding if you press it down just a little bit or halfway, and then you press it all the way in, and you get another thing. Like, I mean, that's pretty fucking cool, guys. I'm genuinely excited for this. All right, so I'm gonna cut the lights a little bit so I can give you guys a glance at the RGB effects. Then I'm gonna get you guys over on my monitor, and we're gonna go through some of the settings that are available for this one-handed keyboard. So right now, as you see, they're doing this trickling fireplace pattern. Again, like I said, the headphones can do that as well. And if I was using my Razer mouse, not this Venom over here, it would all be coordinating, which is really, really cool. Also, when you're setting up RGB for any Razer product, they are individual key backlit, so you can set up each light to do a different effect, like ripple. So if you press here, they're gonna ripple out all the way into here to your other devices. And then also with this one, you can adjust the scroll wheel independently to be like doing a certain effect, the space bar or thumb pad here, and then also each individual button. So just something to note. All right, guys, let's get you on that monitor with a little YouTube magic, shall we? Alrighty, guys, over here on my PC, gonna go ahead and share my screen with you. So this is the Razer Studio, which is the portion where you're able to control your RGB lighting. You're able to drag these around in different configurations. So if you had your headphones over here and a headphone stand or whatever, or a mouse, or, you know, this is actually inside my case. This is my motherboard, which has lights that can coordinate with Razer devices, which is pretty gosh darn cool. But enough about the lights. Coming over here to the home page, you see the two devices I have currently connected that are Razer are my full-size keyboard, which is the Black Widow Elite, and the Tartarus Pro, or the Tartar Sauce Pro, in Mercury White. So it does know what color it is, I guess just by the, you know, the serial number, whatever. So all this stuff is pretty standard. You can remap any of these keys here, set up multiple profiles, key binds. You also have programmability for the D-pad as well as the scroll wheel for up and down as well as click. And you can set it up as a 4-point D-pad or a 8-point D-pad as well, which is really cool if you want different functionality for hitting diagonal, which could be cool if you play like fighting games with this or something like that. Yeah, it's an option. But here's what's really interesting, the feature that we've never seen before, and that is the actuation point. So you can adjust the actuation point for all of these buttons from 1.5 millimeters, which is a very light, small press, to 3.6, which is a rather deep, deliberate press. So that's really cool. By default, it's at 1.5 and 2.5. So far, you know, it being plugged in and everything, when I press the keys down, they still feel like absolutely nothing. There's no like mechanical click with them or anything, which I personally don't like as of now. I mean, maybe it'll grow on me, but unless I haven't done something yet that'll activate like some kind of a click or tactile feeling, they feel really like not even mushy. They feel like nothing. Like when you press them, you don't get any resistance or any kind of feedback or click, or, you know, you don't even know that you've actuated the button. And that's gotta change, because that's a major deal for me, is if I don't have any feedback, you know, from my peripherals, that's a problem. Alrighty, guys, so in order to set up a secondary function, you're going to click on a button first. So I'm going to choose W here, because we're going to add a sprint to W. So when I press down all the way, it's going to automatically hit shift as well as W. So I don't have to hit shift. I just press the button all the way down and I start sprinting in Call of Duty, which is pretty cool. So keyboard function, you're going to check this box that says secondary function. And then you are going to hit key recording. Yep. Rebind key to W plus shift. Shift and W. There we go. Cool. And to make it easier, from all the YouTube reviews that I've seen, and this makes perfect sense, it's very hard to train your fingers to know exactly what the halfway point is and stuff like that. So people just have like a light press, like either here or here, maybe here, and then fully bottomed out for the secondary function. So when I press all the way down, you know, obviously the button's going to bottom out, and your finger's going to stop, and then you know, okay, my secondary function's about to happen. As where, you know, you have to train your brain to know, okay, well, I just pressed, you know, 2.7 millimeters. You know, that's really like, that would take a lot of getting used to, which I'm sure you could if you own this long term. You will get used to the key presses and everything, but I think it'll be easier feeling that resistance of bottoming out to know, okay, the secondary function is going to happen. And we'll just have the primary at a very short little 1.5. So anything past 1.5 but less than bottoming out will just be W, so moving forward, and then I press all the way down and I shall sprint. Alright, so I genuinely do not like the Tartarus Pro at all. I have some major complaints about it. Now, first of all, There is no tactile click whatsoever. I thought that you could set up the actual feeling of the button, but really you're just setting up the optical sensor in there to where however far you've pushed the button, it's going to register, you know, one of two different mappings. Also a problem with that I'll get to in just a minute, but there is absolutely no click or, you know, even like a sponginess like you get on a like a spongy feeling like you get with a membrane keyboard. There's nothing. It just feels like you're pushing air. So I fucking hate the feeling of the keys. Absolutely. It's not satisfying to play with. You don't even know if you've actually hit the button, or, you know, I thought you could set it up to where, you know, you get like a click and then maybe you push down further and you might set up another snap. So where, you know, like, whoa, I just hit my second function with that button. Nothing like that whatsoever. And the actual double keybind function doesn't work great either, because I had it set up to where, you know, 3.5 millimeters, that's bottomed out, but it would activate the second feature, which for me was sprint, you know, holding down W and shift. When I hold down W all the way, right, it would happen at about halfway. So I wasn't even pushing it 3.5 millimeters and bottoming it out. There was so much dead play where I would get, you know, halfway and he would start sprinting, and then I had all this extra play where it's like, well, I should have to push it all the way in. That's what I set it up for. So that's ridiculous that there's so much dead slop at the end of all the buttons, and it's useless. It's absolutely useless, because what's all this dead space doing? Absolutely fucking nothing. The fact that there's no tactile click is ridiculous. And then I would definitely remap that, by default on every other one-handed keyboard from Razer or Corsair or whatever, that little button there above the D-pad or thumb wheel, that's left alt. But for some reason here it changes profiles, which is kind of cool and stuff, until you think that it's still left alt, because that's what it usually is, and you're switching profiles, and then your character's just standing there unresponsive, getting fucked up in Warzone, because, you know, you're in a profile that's not set to anything. It's ridiculous. Ergonomically, it felt pretty good. Obviously, Razer product, same design as the Tartarus V2, so the wrist rest felt good. It felt good in the hand. To me, the Tartarus V2 and the Tartarus Pro don't feel quite as good as the Orbweaver, which is a much older model. The first Orbweaver came out like 6.5 years ago. So I think they're kind of going back a little bit when it comes to ergonomics and comfort, which is unfortunate. But I'm not going to get too much into that, because I am going to be making a separate video, three-way comparison between all three of the one-handed keyboard offerings from Razer. So the Orbweaver, the Tartarus V2, and the Tartarus Pro. But I am not a fan of the Tartarus Pro. The keys feel like sloppy shit. I feel like I get more satisfaction from fingering a jar of mayonnaise. Like, it's just... That's the ASMR for you guys. It feels like shit. And then the double keybind sounds so good on paper, and the marketing for it's so good, and the way they describe it on the box is so good, the way they describe it in the application is so good. Actual execution, D for damn, that's disgraceful. That's a double D, actually. We like the double Ds. But it's not good, because you have all this extra slop, you know, boop, boop, boop. All this extra key play for no reason. Like, I have it set up to where, you know, a light press should be walking or running, whatever, and then sprint should be pushing all the way down, but it's not. You get to halfway, and the dude's sprinting like he's in a fucking marathon. Like, that's not all the way depressed. That's not 3.5 millimeters. That's more like 2.5, if that. So, oh my golly, I fucking hated it. I really did. I was playing Cold War, and I was also sucking pretty bad tonight too, but that's not like why I don't like the keyboard. I like it or dislike it because of the reasons I listed. What I do like about it, the ergonomics are good, not as good as the Orbweaver, but good. I mean, it feels good for long gaming sessions and whatnot. The RGB is cool, being able to coordinate individual keys and stuff like that. And I think cosmetically it looks really cool. Looks are subjective, but in my opinion, cosmetically, I think the appearance of it's pretty handsome. But man, the keys feel shitty. And that's a big deal. When you're playing with a gaming keyboard, either one-handed, full-size, 10 keyless, whatever, the key feelings are so important that gamers have been changing out keys and keycaps for years to get the best experience. And this does not put a tick in my box, ladies. No, it does not get in my box. So...
that's going to do it, guys. I cannot recommend this. I can't. I'll have it linked in the description below, of course, but I'm also going to have the Orbweaver and the Tartarus V2 linked down there as well, which I would highly consider looking at one of those. All right, guys. Oh, it's such a disappointment, too, because I was so excited. You saw my little face. It was like a kid at Christmas, and then just as I was playing with it, I was like, oh, fuck. It's not good. All right, guys. Have a good night.